Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN. Stick around for an offer that will get you 70% off a 3-year plan with 1 extra month free. Recently, the internet collectively went absolutely bonkers at the announcement of an upcoming remaster of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and I, after realising this game wasn't going to be developed by Robomodo, shared in that excitement. The Pro Skater series has, since my youth, remained one of my all-time favourite franchises. While I personally still think 3 is about as close to game design perfection as one can get, I think its predecessors could come close simply by bringing them up to modern performance standards. One of the main reasons I'm excited for this remaster is that I have an excuse to gush about how much I adore this series. I just love these games so much. That said, there was part of the announcement trailer that got me thinking. It was the screen that flashed up showing that in a move that was likely of great logistical and financial cost to the publisher, the licensed soundtracks of those original titles were making their grand return, give or take a few tracks. And look, I totally get it. Those soundtracks formed a crucial part of the identity of those games, and got players into a whole bunch of different music that they otherwise might not have been exposed to. But what I was thinking about now wasn't how great it was that people get to listen to Papa Roach, I guess. It was that the idea of a licensed soundtrack in 2020 is kind of an odd prospect when you really break it down. In the age where technically any soundtrack you could possibly want is yours to stream effortlessly, and the inevitable licensing issues that will come years down the line could potentially put the game at risk of being delisted from sale at some point. This is not the first time we've seen this happen in the Tony Hawk franchise. In other words, it's been a long time since the last meaningful Tony Hawk's release. The way we consume media has wholly changed since then. I never had to consider the business realities of licensing agreements when I was younger, when times were simpler. I've grown old, the inexorable march of time continues, and with it, the further decline of both skate culture's mainstream appeal, as well as the Birdman's once very real dominance within the industry. His brand value tested through over a decade of rushed annual releases, cash grabs, and faulty peripherals that 11 people bought. I mean, when we discuss the remaster of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 in the future, we're first going to have to clarify which one we're even talking about. The hopeful revitalization of the series by the team behind those surprisingly innovative handheld ports, or this. And none of this is even to mention the series' main competitor, Skate, which has seen publisher EA go the opposite direction, responding to the years-long campaign on the part of the brave soldiers laying siege to their Instagram with #Skate4 as their ammunition, with complete radio silence. That is until very recently, when fans were treated to the monkey paw moment of news that beloved classic Skate 3 was finally getting a re-release, and it was going to be for mobile. Publishers across the board, it would seem, have been doing the absolute most to drive this genre into the ground. And yet, fan excitement over the mere mention of any rumoured return to the sport in video game form could not be more palpable. There are only a few franchises or genres I can think of that have suffered such a prolonged period of releases ranging from utterly terrible to flat out non-existent that have nonetheless retained such passion from their fan base. Hostility around that Skate 3 mobile port has been way less intense than I'd expect. We'll allow it if it means more skate, people seem to be saying. And I've seen precisely zero skepticism of this recent Tony Hawk remaster, despite Activision's treatment of the series up to this point. The love of these games runs that deep. What's more, this passion seems to coincide with indie developers now turning to Kickstarter and Early Access in an attempt to fill the void left by the big publishers. And even in their currently scrappy form, people are just excited to skate again. The genre genuinely feels like it's going through something of a renaissance right now, and it rules. But it begs the question, why skateboarding? Why has the love of this specific sport in interactive form endured for this long? Because I can tell you, it goes way beyond mere nostalgia for the games of our youth. As someone who has been playing through a whole bunch of these games recently, it's remarkable how well they hold up. Even at their worst, at the height of the Activision-mandated annual churn that sent the franchise the same way Guitar Hero went, those Neversoft games at least maintained the insanely tight mechanical core, the extremely precise physics system that turns your character into a whirlwind of momentum that makes returning to these games with fresh eyes all these years later a far far more enjoyable experience now than upon the release. The Skate franchise, similarly, on a pure kinesthetic level, acts as the perfect counterpoint to Tony Hawk's arcade madness, with weighty controls that make achieving those more grounded goals of successfully grinding a curb as opposed to achieving 1,000,000 points with a 50 times combo feel so meaningful, like an achievement that you've really worked at. My point is that, counter to the nostalgia argument, so many of these games have only gotten better with age. And with that in mind, is there something inherent to the act of skating itself that makes these games so enjoyable to play? Why was skateboarding the specific extreme sport that succeeded where so many others failed to gain such a foothold in gaming? You know, it's not exactly like people are screaming from the rooftops demanding a reboot of Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, for instance, or any other game from the largely forgotten O2 range. Activision's attempt to strike while the iron was hot and produce a suite of games that bore all the aesthetic trappings of the brand that inspired it, while simultaneously completely failing to set the world on fire. And sure, snowboarding has its share of devout followers clamouring for a new entry in the SSX series, for instance, but it's nowhere near the fervour with which people are celebrating the return of the Birdman or holding out hope that one day EA will yield to the power of a hashtag. As I see it, there are some potential reasons for this. You could say the particularly widespread enthusiasm for the skating game was down to the fact that no other sport had the same, shall we say, cultural coalescence of skateboarding, existing at the perfect intersection of art, music and fashion at the precise time when a more rebellious counterculture associated with each was enjoying its moment in the mainstream. To put it another way, other extreme sports were just that, sports. Skateboarding, on the other hand, was a culture unto itself. It was fashionable. Or, in slightly more concrete terms though, it could be said that those attempts to pro-skaterize other sports just weren't all that great. The vast majority of these games contained some critical awkwardness in their controls or their design that left them feeling like cheap knockoffs of the real McCoy. With surfing and wakeboarding, your movement is obviously somewhat limited, dictated by the whims of the boat or the wave guiding you. In snowboarding, it's not like you can exactly push uphill. The only way to go is down, to follow a fairly preordained path. And BMX largely has you trying to tame this unwieldy bit of metal underneath you, as even pressing jump at the wrong time can trigger a bail. In skateboarding games though, you don't have those same spatial concerns. Your board is smaller, you aren't fastened to it, and crucially, there is nothing about the environment that says you can't go there. I've mentioned it in previous videos, but I think the pro skater games aren't really about skating as much as they're about movement in general. Less simulation of the sport than they are these weird arcadey collectathon platformers almost, where your simple goal is to flow through levels as quickly and efficiently as possible, with extremely condensed placement of rails and ramps to allow you to do so. The unrealism of the level design mimics and aids the unrealism of your own movement, allowing you to be on the ground one second, then gliding around the roof of a building the next. On a thematic level, the freedom and rebellion that skate culture represented made it the perfect vector for this kind of wild combo-based mayhem. That liberating feeling that you could go anywhere you wanted, move faster and jump higher than anyone else, human physicality, or your mum telling you to do your homework be damned. Mechanically, it just so happens that skateboarding, of all the extreme sports, has always had the least physical obstacles getting in the way of that simple goal. No extra wheels to maneuver, no waves to limit your movement in any way. The skateboard is an extension of you that allows you the freedom to move in whatever way you please. And that freedom still exists, even in the games that serve to fill the more simulation-shaped hole left by Skate. A more open approach to environment design makes sense in a game like Session, where perhaps that wasn't necessarily the case in later Tony Hawk titles, where those games were focused on aiding your movement at every turn, thus benefiting from a more concentrated level structure. Games like Session make you work to even stay on your board. You'll spend minutes at a time trying one seemingly simple grind over and over again that in the Tony Hawk games would be a button press, comically flying into the stratosphere when you so much as touch the pavement on the approach. But crucially, the fact you're even trying this grind in the first place shows how these games train you to view your environment differently, in a way similar to how Mirror's Edge treated parkour. A normal bench becomes a perfect fit for your board to slide across. A slight raise in the cement becomes your ramp. These otherwise mundane architectural occurrences become a means of achieving momentum and conquering the world around you. Where pro skater games provided you with a wealth of predetermined lines, games like Skate and Session make you feel like a genius for putting in the work to create those lines yourself. And this is ultimately the reason I'm so excited about this renaissance of skating games. In so many instances, the skateboard turns the simple act of movement into one of the most mechanically satisfying, freeing experiences one can have within the medium. And speaking of freedom, gain your freedom from arbitrary geographic content restrictions today with this video's sponsor, NordVPN. Say you're traveling and you want to access content from your home country, or you live in a country where the government censors which sites you can and can't access. You might have heard about something on a streaming service you desperately want to watch, but it's only available to those in a specific region. With NordVPN, you can solve all these problems by connecting to one of thousands of servers in over 60 countries. With the help of NordVPN's lightweight and user-friendly Chrome browser, Android and iOS apps, all with unlimited bandwidth and up to 6 simultaneous connections, you can fully control your browsing experience wherever you are. And right now you can get 70% off a 3-year plan plus 1 additional month for free when you go to nordvpn.com/writing or use code WRITING at checkout. This special offer makes your subscription just $3.49 a month, is entirely risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, and really helps the channel to boot. A massive thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring the video, and I really hope you enjoyed this piece on skateboarding games. I'd like to sincerely thank my patrons for their continued support. This is a really weird time, and so your immensely generous pledges really do mean a whole lot right now. Your support is what allows me to keep making videos, and I really could not do this without your help. With that in mind, if you enjoy what I do, and if you feel like you can really help the channel continue, as well as get things like early access to ad-free video uploads by heading to patreon.com/writingongames and pledging only what you feel comfortable with. I am unbelievably grateful for your support in whatever form it takes. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Ruth Knapman, Leah Chinello, Konstantinos Sakinis, Henry Mielek, Edward Clayton Andrews, Hebe Amore, Rob, Bryce Snyder, Tommy Carver-Chaplin, David Björk, Lucas, Dallas Keane, William Fielder, my dad, Timothy Jones, The Nameless Guy, Ham Megas, Samuel Pickens, Shardfire, Anna Pimentel, Justin's Holderness, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you very much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you next time.